I think from my retail experience and working on sales floors, you never ask people questions that they can answer yes or no to. So for me, it was about engaging the person that came in the door, trying to find something that they're interested in, not so much about the house, just trying to make that relationship.
Hello and welcome to episode 261 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'm joined by Dallas-based realtor Linda Bale, founder of Bale Real Estate Group. After living in 17 homes across 8 states, Linda used her personal experiences to build a real estate career rooted in empathy and relationships. From leveraging open houses to grow her early business to embracing social media marketing and offer concierge-level client service, Linda shares how she's built a people-first business that truly sets her apart. Throughout our conversation, we explore the emotional side of real estate, how consistency and follow-up drive success, and the importance of treating every client like family. But before we get on with today's featured interview, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story of real estate success or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new guests to inspire our listeners. And lastly, if you enjoy this conversation and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. We stream on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. All right, let's get into our conversation with Linda Bale. If you'd like to connect with her or learn more about Bale Real Estate Group, be sure to check out the links in the episode description. Really, the way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit. Tell us who you are and where you are joining us from.
Hi, I'm Linda Bale, and I'm with Bale Real Estate Group, and we are out of Dallas, Texas.
Awesome. So kind of give me a little bit of background on, how you got into real estate, because it was definitely not, a first career. You've not been doing this for a long period of time.
Right, that's right. I met my husband. I lived in Chicago, and he lived in California, and that was 40 years ago we met.
Wow.
And the words he said to me was, "You'll have to move to California because I'm never living where it's cold." And we, together as a couple now, have lived in 8 states and had 17 homes. So I kind of built myself as like the professional mover. And we moved to Dallas originally in 1993, and we left in 2007, and we went to California again. And so in 2014, we came back to Dallas. My father was in Chicago and had a stroke, and they couldn't live by themselves anymore. We needed to figure out a second plan. So I wanted to move to LA, and they said no. And they said, "You moved to Chicago?" And we said no. So I said, "Well, let's go back to Dallas." So we have a good friend that's a cardiologist here, and I knew I could get my dad the care he needed. So I had 2 kids in college, a husband working in LA, and we moved back to Dallas. And it was that move that I started to think, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? How can I juggle taking care of my parents? Both of our children had aspirations to go to graduate school, and that's a huge expense. So I thought, well, what could I do? I had a career in retail, was a buyer, personnel manager, worked for wherever he moved me. I was able to work for different department stores or be in a buying office, and that worked. So we came back to Dallas, and I said, I'm going to go get my real estate license.
Oh, so was it, all of the moving and all of the, the homes that you would tour? Is that what really, sparked that interest?
I think, moving, there's a lot more to buying and selling a house than sticking a sign on it. Right. And there's a lot to move. There's a lot of things that go into moving. You have the emotions of family and children and elderly parents. Not everyone moves like, oh, I have a small house, I'm going to go get a big house. It's not always for the greatest things. And we've done that so many times that I felt that sometimes the agents, I worked with some lovely ones that were great. And then I worked with some that really I wasn't understanding what they did for me. Like I was still bearing too much of the stress, or I was the one that was asking the questions. Whereas as a real estate agent now, I try to get ahead of the questions. I try to anticipate and set expectations for people. And you have to look at the whole package. It's a huge move, and it's stressful. It's very stressful, especially when you're moving across the country with family and children.
Right, definitely. So walk me through your start and how you got into the real estate industry. What steps did you go through and eventually kind of joining a brokerage, or how you got your start?
So when I made that decision, there's a Champions Real Estate School in Dallas. They're all over and they're very good. Um, I started with them, but trying to go to the classes and manage my father's health was challenging. But they had like a program where you could do it online. You could do it at your own time. So maybe I did it late at night or in between doctor's appointments. And then what I liked about them is they had this refresher course that you could go to on the weekends and really get like intense learning so that she'd understand what was on the test. So it took me a little longer than I had hoped just because of related issues with my parents. So I got my license and then it was like, well, what am I going to do with it now? And I didn't want, you work with your sphere of influence, but I didn't want my friends to think like, oh God, she's only talking to us because she wants us to, sell a house. And, I had imposter syndrome. There's agents in Dallas that have been in the business that I know for 30 years or 25 years, and I wasn't that. And I thought, what am I going to do for people to learn to trust me to, help with their biggest purchase? So I joined a brokerage where I could get handhold and training. I joined Coldwell Banker, and they were great. Um, and I did open houses every single weekend because I was determined not to be dependent on my friends. But we have a really good dear friend that used to work with my husband. That's how we became friends. And I've sold 2 homes for him. I sold his sister's house. I bought his sister's house. I've helped him with his children. So it just naturally, we do help our friends now, and it works out really well. But
Right.
open houses were the key every single weekend. I talked to other agents in the office that had open houses and said, let me sit in your open house.
That's excellent. So did the open houses and did that idea come from somebody at the brokerage, or was that something that you saw as a way to, drive in new leads for you?
Well, there's always like the top 20 things that you need to do as a new agent. And, the biggest thing is to have consistency. So that was an idea that the broker gave me. She had, a whole like a jumpstart program, how to get started in the business. And I did the open houses. In fact, there was one open house I did for this agent. I did it like 3 weekends in a row. And then we had a family event to go to. It was out of town, so I didn't do it that weekend. And didn't someone walk in unrepresented and buy the house from that agent sitting there? And I thought, I've been sitting there for 3 weeks. But I always look at open houses as two things. Either no one's going to show up and I get 2 hours of uninterrupted time to do something that I want to do, or it's going to be so busy and I'll get a client out of it. So I did get a client out of this open house that I was in. They had a house to sell and they wanted to buy a house. So that was my first deal. And this was years ago. I sold their $650,000 house and we bought an $800,000 house at the time, which is now probably worth close to $2 million.
Right. Right. Well, so tell me about that mindset of, using open houses as that lead generation source, because I think, I talk to a lot of people, and even people that aren't in the real estate industry, uh, they don't get that part of the open house is, yes, you're there to get this particular home seen by the people that are walking through, but utilizing that time to fill your own database with new buyer and seller leads.
Well, I think from my retail experience and working on sales floors, you never ask people questions that they can answer yes or no to. So for me, it was about engaging the person that came in the door because I like to talk and, trying to find something that they're interested in, not so much about the house, just trying to make that relationship because real estate really is the relationship business, whether it's your clients buying or selling, or the vendors you use, or other real estate agents because you're making deals with them. So it's that mindset going to an open house because everyone that walks in, they either have an agent or they don't. So what can I do to have them like me and trust me? There's one couple in particular that I met a couple of years ago in an open house. They came in and they were from Chicago and I'm from Chicago and there's the whole food thing and the White
Right.
Sox and now we can talk about the Pope and from Chicago. And I thought they came in with their real estate agent. So I was just chatting and we started talking about food and grocery stores. And I'm a big Central Market, that's a big
Mhm.
grocery store in Dallas, fan. And she said, you've told me more in 20 minutes about Dallas than I knew. And about 6 weeks later, they called. because of that connection I made. And I said, but your real estate agent was lovely that you came in with. Why do you not want to use her anymore? They said, oh, that wasn't our agent. That's our future daughter-in-law. So, and now I've sold the parents bought a house here in Dallas, and now that the future daughter-in-law, her and her husband bought a home from me as well. But it all started on our love of Chicago, and I still keep in touch with them today.
That's awesome. Tell me, and so once you got, that initial deal from the open house, did that make it did it make it easier to kind of share with your already existing sphere of influence that you were an agent,
Yeah.
and it kind of approach them now that you had something to back it up with?
Well, then, everyone likes to talk about real estate.
Mhm.
So it was just getting comfortable with, we'd go to dinner with friends and I'd start talking about real estate. They'd start talking about real estate. And then the conversation would go to, or then they'd start to see how busy I was. And then it naturally led to that. We have one really dear friend, and I never bought or sold a house for him, but I would say he's probably one of my biggest lead sources. He's probably given me 8 clients in the last
So,
4 years. And then those clients have turned into, I sold I've helped their children now. I have one client, he jokes, "Miss Linda, I have no more children to give you. Like, we're done." But that's important. You just don't know where your business is gonna come from.
right. So tell me, as you built up this book of business and you've built up these lead sources, kind of what was the next evolution of your real estate career from, those first, times in the open houses to what were you doing then to really kind of start growing things?
Um, well, I would say it's social media. So now we've started doing, I'm doing podcasts with people like you, which is
Yeah.
good. And I'm starting putting stuff on YouTube, and I'm shooting videos, uh, whether it's about the different steps in buying and selling a house. Because, someone usually just does one or two of these deals a year. I mean, in their lifetime. Not everyone buys and sells houses all the time. So it's good to put that information out there of all the different steps that you did. So really kind of packaging up, what we offer in, a listing presentation and a buying presentation. And we do a lot of farming, and it's all about consistency. There's 2 significant subdivisions in town that we farm, and we've been doing it now for it was a year in February. And I've gone on 4 listing appointments in the last 2 weeks from
Oh,
that
wow.
lead generation.
Wow. What specifically were you doing to get in front of those leads in that farm?
We send out a really nice mailer every month with statistics in it, and it's geared towards the subdivision.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
then we
think
follow up with like a drip campaign, and we follow up with another postcard, and now we can start to see that people are starting to watch a couple of the videos that I do. And
that's awesome. Yeah, and I think sending those types of market updates and the statistics. I think those are always great, especially in when in the times like we are now, like mortgage rates are always in the news, the housing market's in the news, but people are interested in that, and even if they aren't necessarily looking to sell their home today, they
right.
want to know what's going on in their neighborhood. I even in my neighborhood for a while, for sale sign would pop up and it'd be gone in a couple of weeks. Now they're sitting longer. We've had one that's been down the street and it's probably 3 or 4 months now, and you kind of wonder what's going on. What are the stats looking like?
Well, everyone's in the mindset still of what it was like, 3 years ago when a house went up on Thursday evening. Offers were due by 5 o'clock on Sunday. You couldn't talk to the agent, and there was 30 or 40 offers on a house. And that's actually not a fun market to be in. I had one couple, they had just had a baby, and I think we wrote 10 offers
Yeah.
because he just couldn't compete with people that were just throwing money at houses with no rhyme or reason to it, just
Hmm.
because they wanted it.
Right.
So I like the slower market, because people should be able to go look at a house, think about it, go back the next day, maybe bring a family member to check it out with them, and take their time. Though would I like it to speed up a little bit? Yes, I don't like all these days on market.
Right. Um, Tell me about the you know with your own experience with the relocating and the moving. Is that do you I have to imagine, even with your own experience, you're able to really talk with people that are kind of going through that same thing. Maybe it's, I know the Dallas market, excuse me, always people coming in, from out of state and making moves. And so are you able to really kind of share your own personal experiences to help walk them through that?
Yes. There's a client that we moved from Chicago with his wife and two young girls, and they were going to be in the private school sector here.
Mhm.
And that's a whole stressor because you make the application and then you have to wait. And so it was the whole thing of, well, if we don't get into this school, we'll buy in this subdivision. And at one point, he was thinking of renting. And I explained to him, I said, "You're going to move here. Your wife doesn't know a soul. You're going to go off to work. She has these two little girls. And yes, she's going to drive them to school, but you're going to be in a different neighborhood and she's going to get settled. And then you're going to you're going to move her again and it's going to be stressful. We really need to focus on what the end game is here because that
Yeah.
isn't fun." And I think the second day I went over to see them at the house, she was in tears. She was so excited about how they landed right and for the
Yeah.
school. And that's important
Yeah.
because it's a whole family that's moving. And I joke because we moved our kids to California when our daughter was going into the seventh grade
Hmm.
and our son was going into high school. And friends of ours in Dallas said, "You've lost your senses. Like you're moving them at the hardest time in their life and they're not going to be happy with you." And well, my daughter's an attorney and my son's a doctor. So I think they turned out pretty good.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If anything,
No.
it made them more adaptable to change.
Yeah.
And so when they went to college, it wasn't hard to, go out to dinner by themselves and not know anyone and meet friends. And I think it's made them more social than not.
Right. Absolutely. My son, he actually just started middle school 2 days ago, and it's been really interesting. He got accepted into more of an accelerated academic type program. So he's in there with totally new set of friends, doesn't know many of the people, but it's really cool to watch him adapt. He was nervous, don't get me wrong, at the beginning because he didn't have his normal set of friends in there. But he's doing great. In these last 2 days, he's so excited about all the different things that he's getting to do. And so yeah, I definitely agree with kids are a lot more adaptable than we give them credit for.
Right. Right. And I think sometimes it's the parents that are more scared
Yeah.
because it's always been, we can get through anything, this little four family unit of us. So long we're
Yeah.
together and we communicate, we'll get through it. And
Yeah.
it worked very well for us.
Yeah. Um, really interested in kind of your experiences and then advice for people that are looking to make that career change and getting into real estate after a long career in something else, or maybe it was a stay-at-home mother that is wanting to get back in the workforce and using and choosing real estate as that career path.
Um, well, someone that's, been a stay-at-home mom and you have all the connections of um, the friends that you have from that and the different activities in the school. When my kids were younger, I was the PTA president. So I knew a lot of people, which has served me not so much because we left town and came back, but it served me in having those conversations of how to get involved with school and how to meet people. And I think it's important that you lean on your life experiences as we think, oh, real estate, you can learn it from a book as far as, what piece of paper is what and all of that type of thing. But the part about people and people skills, you can't teach that. You either have it or you don't. So the people that are, naturally have, good friendships and can work a room and you can work into different groups at school and friends, it does work naturally towards that. I think school teachers make a really good real estate agents. I knew several school teachers that have made the jump, whether they've been teaching for years or there's a mother-daughter team that I know here in Dallas, and the daughter was a school teacher, and she joined, and now she's so successful because those parents that trusted her with her children, she went back and connected with them, and now they trust her with their home. So she already had the relationship. So it's just finding the comfort level to have the confidence in yourself to do that. And it's fine. You don't know everything. So just be honest. That's the whole, it's consistency and follow through and being honest and
Yeah.
just start small
Right.
and
Absolutely. I really,
yeah,
yeah.
engage in conversations about real estate with people.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's one of those, engaging in those conversations and people, I talked to, they said they were always, they were scared to, how those conversations were like, how they're going to get their name out there. But if you are in, I know, bring my son back up, his baseball, he plays baseball. Every one of those families, real estate comes up in every conversation just because, what are, is one looking to maybe move to a different subdivision in the neighborhood, or what schools, are zoned for different things. And, those little things come up in every little conversation in your day to day life.
Right. And it's just natural. And things that happen natural seem to work better. It's not forced. And so you got to count those into like when you're trying to, generate leads and, conversations that you're having and follow up with someone. Hey, you were talking the other night about this. Did you, would you like to go look at some houses? I have some free time, or, just have a natural conversation with people with no pressure.
Right. And so that follow up, and I like, on how you frame that to where it is really natural, to where, it's not this automatic text message that comes out of this automatic campaign. And those tools are great. And don't get me wrong. I think everybody, there's the automations and the different, drip campaigns that you can set somebody up in your CRM. I think you should be using those. But having those personal touches and really making those warm connections with people, that's really where.
That's the whole key to it. It's all about the relationships and the people that's how they engaged with you originally from a drip campaign or a mailer that came. There's nothing better than standing in an open house and someone walks in with my mailer
Yeah.
and says, Linda, we wanted to come meet you to talk to you about listing your house. And that's the best feeling in the world. Or I'll go into someone's house and they have all of them.
Right.
There's a year's worth of um of our flyers and stuff, which is great. I had one listing in March. We sold it in 9 days, which was wonderful. I wish the rest of my houses would sell in 9 days. But I went over to meet with this couple, and thinking that they were interviewing like 6 other agents. And I was, we had the conversation. They had all my flyers on the counter and they said, okay, do you got some paperwork for us to sign? I said, well, aren't you interviewing other agents? Oh, no, you're it. We like what you do. We like your stuff. We're ready to go. Let's sign the paperwork. And thank goodness I had it with. I learned right there, always have a set of paperwork with you. Don't ever leave everything for DocuSign.
Right. Absolutely. And so when it comes to, those warm conversations and those of building the relationships, and whether that is somebody that you meet at an open house or reaches out to you via a flyer, and when you strike up those conversations and you kind of hear those little tidbits of information, do you go back and kind of enter that into some kind of maybe it's not a CRM, maybe just a little notebook or whatever it is that kind of puts, okay, this person is, this is the reason why they're looking to move, or this is, kind of some of their background. That way, if a particular home or a stat comes up, that you have it and you can send it to them.
Yeah, I am not a technical person. And it's, years ago for my husband to get me out of a notebook into like a BlackBerry was a huge stretch.
Right.
And now, I'm one of those people, I have to write everything down. Well, that doesn't serve you really well because when you're looking for that note, and I thought I was very organized. I had notebooks, I dated them. I'd put that notebook away and get a new one. You really need to have a CRM and you need to work it. And that's a hard switch for people to do, but it just makes so much more sense. So, yeah, I did an open house on Saturday and I made 2 really good connections with people that came in and I followed up and sent them emails to questions they had asked me. Um, they are in my CRM now with little notes, to remind me because you think you're going to remember, but 3 weeks from now, when I've met another 20 people, it's or you go back and you look at the list, you have to put those notes, where you met them, what did you talk about, and what your next steps are. And I'm getting much better at doing that. And I can see the difference now of having that and the follow-up
Yeah.
because none of those conversations will matter if you don't have the follow-up. And if you're
Right.
scrambling on your desk looking for a piece of paper or there was a coach once that talked about he had an agent that wrote everything on little napkins and that just were you can't run a business like that. You could work like that, but if you're going to scale or get to the next level, you have to have a system.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm big on that, but I'm still every day is a new challenge to keep myself organized.
Right, right. Yeah, and I was really I'm a notebook person too. I like having notebooks. But even when it comes to like doing the podcast, as soon as we get done, I have a whole I use monday.com. I go in there, I everybody has their own line. I drop, what we kind of what some of the topics we talked about. If, an episode title popped into my head right afterwards, I throw that in there because I might not edit this for a week or two, and I may have done two or three more interviews by then and forgot, and and
It mix people up and yeah,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
it's and then there's nothing worse than when you do follow up on a lead and you drop the ball and
hmm
they say, "Oh, we already bought a house."
yeah,
That was just business that you left on the table
yeah, yeah,
because you
or
weren't to follow through.
right, or even saying, oh, if you thought this, you sent a message that was, this person was, you thought they were from Chicago and had this little, funny story about, and like, oh no, we're not from Chicago, we're from New York. Like,
Right.
you really messed that one up. So
Yeah. Well, especially when you start talking about people's pizza. It's always a
right.
big
Oh
topic of
yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
Who is
definitely. Yeah. Well, tell me about kind of the what concierge service, level service looks like to you, and how you work with your clients. Once they become your clients, and the level of service that you give them through the listing of the home, or whether you're buying the home.
Well, everyone lists their house for different reasons. And, the earlier that we can get with a client, the better it is because we can help them make decisions of what should you do to your house to get it ready. So it's, that's one of the first things we do. We walk a home. Now, like if they need to paint or carpet, I have the resources to bring, some vendors to them. We have stagers, photographers, the couple that I just moved here from Chicago that live down in Preston Hollow. They, I helped them get decorators, people to line their cabinets. I met with a gentleman yesterday, and he was getting the flyer at the house. It was his father's house, and the father passed away 2 weeks ago. So this man's flown in now. He had saw the flyers at his father's house, and I have his business. But now he's like, we have this house full of stuff, Linda. What are we going to do? And I said, I have a wonderful woman that does estate sales. So she can come in and set the estate sale up for you. Once the stuff sells, you'll work your deal with her on that. But she'll also have people that will come take it away. We can have people come in and clean. So it's kind of like a one stop. There's nothing that I wouldn't do. I had another family. Husband was a doctor, very busy. I brought carpet in, window cleaners, whatever they kind of need. And that's what a full concierge agent does. And, just with the inspections and helping them get through all of that, it's important because people don't have people that they trust.
Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the
I think
vendors I hit are wonderful.
yeah,
I even know a great mover.
right. And
Sure.
when I ask you about the vendors, but yeah, I think that concierge. When I think about it, it's you're there to solve whatever problems may come up.
And you just
Because
don't know what they're going to be. But I don't like having a problem that I can't fix. I'm a fix it. But even the gentleman that I met yesterday, he was from Chicago. It was kind of funny, but he said that his father's financial planner gave him a real estate agent that he refers to. So he called her because he said he was talking to other people, and he said once he started explaining what he needed, she said, "Oh, that's too much work for me. I don't do. I can't help you."
yeah,
And really, it's really not that hard.
right.
So, like, what is she? She just wants to stick a sign up on the front lawn. She's got a financial planner giving her referrals, but she doesn't want to do the work. I have no idea who she is or where she comes from. But that was just like, that's my competition.
Yeah,
Someone who says, oh, that's too much work for me.
right, right. And I have to imagine that that financial advisor, you know, probably wants maybe want to find somebody else to be sending business their way because that reputation is
Yeah, because that's what the guy, he said, can you believe someone said that? I said, yes and no. And then I have another client now that lives in Frisco and they have a custom home and he's very concerned about, how the house will get priced. But the first steps that we're going to do is, I need to find someone that will stain the garage doors and paint the fence and help him clean up his yard. So we're putting all that pricing together first so he can figure out what his net's going to walk away with on the house, even to figure out if he should sell the house now. So all those steps, it's not just about putting the sign in the door. So, we're probably 6 months out on that, but I've been there twice now. So yeah, it's important.
Right. And with those vendors, how important is it to find people and work with people that have those same, values that you do, that you're there to really help solve people's problems?
It's so important because it's my reputation. And I have to put my head on the pillow at night and not worry about things that, someone said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing. So the people that I refer, either I've had a client that's used them and it's had great experience, and then I started using them, or I personally used them myself. We have a father-son HVAC company that we use, and a client found them, and I was at the house when they were doing the work, and they just seemed like, I was shocked at what the bill was. It was very reasonable. And I asked them to come look at something at our house. And it turned out the company we hired before didn't even do the work. So they were up in the attic. How would I know that they did the work? He said, "Are you sure you had someone come adjust these vents, Linda?" And I said, "Yeah, I paid X amount of dollars for it." He goes, "Well, they didn't." And so he took my husband up in the attic and said, "This is what it looks like, and this is what we need to do." And the guy didn't even do any work.
Yeah.
So those are the people I trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is a reflection of me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. So, tell me, kind of what are your kind of future goals? I know we're, at the time of recording this, we're in August, but, it'll, be that fourth quarter, when everybody's listening to this. But so what are kind of your future goals for the end of this year, and then even going into next year?
Well, I became partners with my husband almost 3 years ago, which was a big surprise to both of us. So I think the fourth quarter for us is going to be good. Yesterday, I think it's now a 99% chance that the Fed is going to drop interest rates on September 17th, my son's birthday. So we're very hopeful for that, because even though the interest rates that will get dropped are tied to how banks lend money, it's not the mortgage rate. There's just the perception of what people think in the media. And so everyone talks about interest rates being high. Well, that's the interest rate that's high. And, it's better now to buy a house when you have the opportunity to look at several of them, because I can see from doing open houses that there is a lot of pent up demand out there, because people have been waiting. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be too many offers on a property. You might not get the property you want. So it's better to buy now and refinance later. But we think the fourth quarter is going to be really good.
Good. Well, excellent. Well, for somebody that's listening to this, where can they connect with you or find you online?
Well, you can go to balerealestategroup.com. We also have Instagram at Bale Real Estate. You can always call me. Number's 972-469-0332.
Awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
I enjoyed our conversation, Michael. Thank you for having me.
I really want to thank Linda again for joining us today and sharing her story. From moving her own family 17 times to now guiding clients through one of life's biggest transitions, she proves that empathy, consistency, and genuine relationships are the foundation to a lasting real estate career. If you'd like to connect with Linda or learn more about Bale Real Estate Group, I've included links in the episode description. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tips to share with our community, send us a message to feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.